What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the first fall Monday market update, special edition, What the Fed edition. Hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. I sure did. I went to Charleston. You ever been to Charleston, Matt?
I have not been to Charleston. Is that in South Carolina?
It is in South Carolina.
Well, look at me and my geography, bro. Just crushing it.
Pretty impressive. My name is Sean Grapevine, Vice President of Product Strategy here at UMortgage, and I'm joined this week, as with most weeks, by Matt, the mortgage geographer, Gougé.
Man, welcome. it's a fun week to be in mortgage. As you know, we'll get into. Last week was the big, it was the start of what is going to be a series of rate cuts. But after, I think what did they say? It was like 4 years in the making or something since the last cut. The cut had to be sometime in 2020. The last one they did.
The first non-emergency cut of my career since, I don't know. I don't really remember the 20 teens, but there weren't a lot of cuts. There were a couple. Right. But they couldn't go much lower than they were. So definitely uncharted territory for a lot of us youngsters like you and me.
Yeah, just the young fellows like us. And so, you know, there's good news out there and there's bad news. And when I say bad, I don't mean like bad or as in sad. I mean bad as in just people just sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And so last week was half celebrating the start of this new rate cutting cycle, which will inevitably bring down mortgage interest rates. The other half of my time last week was forwarding a short little 3-minute educational video I made that said, here's what happened. Here's how it didn't really affect interest rates, but good news. Over the last 3 months, rates have gone from 7.5% to 6%. So I wish you would have called me and it didn't take the Fed announcing this and, you know, the media to tell you. But yeah, people are back in the game for refinance. A lot of people are off the sidelines in the purchase market. It looks better to them at, you know, 6.25% than it did at 7.25%. So it's spurring a lot of activity in both purchase business and refinance business, which is a good thing because I like to serve people and I get to serve more people when more people call.
Yeah, it seems like you must have locked at least 1 or 2 loans last week because your internet's been upgraded. We can actually hear and see you. So I'm glad to hear you were able to upgrade past dial.
Locked a couple million in loans and must have made good on my internet bill. I don't know. I mean, I might know geography and loans, but one thing I don't know is technology. So hopefully, yeah, don't jinx it, man. Knock on wood. Internet's working fine today.
Well, let's dive into the specifics. We'll dive into the numbers here and take a look at what rates have been doing and then sort of what the expectation for what rates are going to do. So if you take a look here, we've been on a long, slow ride down since June, watching mortgage interest rates slowly decline. And you may have thought, and it sounds like you, dear listener, dear watcher, and you know, Matt, prospective clients may have thought the Fed lowering interest rates would lower interest rates. Well, as we've seen, interest rates have actually, despite the Fed doing a double dip interest rate reduction, which let's just clear the air. I predicted a single one. You predicted a double. You win.
I won. I forget. Did we even place a bet? We're like, it was to be determined on the bet.
I think it was whoever won was going to do something really nice for the person who lost.
I think it was something like you wearing a Kings jersey and starting off next episode with maybe like a crown and like talking about the Sacramento Kings season and how great they're going to play. We'll save that for next time.
Yeah, sure. I'm not. Yeah, I don't think most people even know like what league or sport the Kings play. So I don't know.
I don't think that's true. I think that people are going to show up in the comments knowing that the Sacramento Kings are the greatest NBA organization of all time. But yeah, like you said, back to the mortgage stuff, right? Back on track here, boys. When you know, it's funny. I got a lot of flack. I got a lot of flack for posting a comment that said, "Hey, rates went up today, not down. So stop like posting misinformation." What I should have said is good news, folks. Like this announcement of the Fed rate cut didn't affect mortgage rates today, but we knew it was coming. So over the last 6, 8, 12 weeks, mortgage interest rates have already come down in anticipation of this because some people are like, oh man, you're Mr. Poo-Poo and you're telling people, you know, that are excited about rates coming down and want to buy a home or refinance. You're telling them that it didn't happen. I just was pointing out because I find it partly amusing that especially if you're in mainstream media and you're reporting on a bunch of stuff and you're no expert in really any of them, you just say what sounds good and you say we'll get people to click. And so it was like the Fed cut more interest rates today. And maybe they didn't say specifically mortgage interest rates, but they implied it. And all of this, I mean, truth be told, it was free advertising. I shouldn't be mad at it because, you know, they got a bunch of people that go, you know what? Let me take a look at my pre-approval. Let me see if buying at 500,000 makes more sense to me financially now. And so anyhow, but it was a week full of trying to educate, not for the sake of like, hey, you're wrong, here's the right, but I just think it's good for people to kind of understand what's going on and what influences it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's so hard to, even in the industry, to like understand all of the levers and like stimuli that occur that like result in rates doing unexpected things, right? Like even you and I probably thought that a double rate cut, you know, which was a little bit beyond the expectation, would probably cause rates to reduce to a little bit. And here we are, you know, the 10 years up 0.1% from last Monday. Mortgage interest rates are up, you know, 0.1% since last Monday. And it's almost like it's perplexing to even people who are seasoned. So, and I totally understand why people like the only thing that people have any exposure to is the Fed. And when you read an article about it, it doesn't come through that the Fed is not responsible for setting mortgage interest rates or what the relationship between mortgage or consumer credit rates are based on what the Fed does. But I will say, and it does make sense because it is true that what the Fed's interest rate policy does precede, or actually often postcede, what mortgage interest rates do. But it's not a 1-to-1. You know, there's a dancing around it that ends up happening. So we end up with these days where it's like, oh my gosh, the Fed reduced interest rates by more than anybody ever expected, and mortgage rates, like now the payment on my pre-approval went up $20 a month. Like, what the heck happened?
Right. Yeah. You know, I think what we should jump into, it just came to me like, what should we talk about today? We should talk about this. Rates have come down. And so we kind of know that. I think we're in this cool spot where rates have come down. We feel like we've reached the top. It's only going to get better from here. Whether it moves fast or moves slow is kind of irrelevant. But like what people watching, I think, want to know is like, what does this mean for me as a buyer in the fourth quarter of 2024? If I'm going out there and buying something, I think, you know, we probably have some insight into, at least, I mean, I definitely do, because I'm talking to people all day, every day on this subject, people that are active in the market. And so after we run through the numbers, Sean, let's just talk about what you would do, what I would do, and let's give each other advice on a Q4 buyer across different markets.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Also, if anybody has any questions about the market and how all of this stuff works, Matt and I would kind of know what we're talking about at this point. We would love to answer those questions or at least get answers for you if for some reason we don't know. But yeah, we'll jump into the numbers here. As usual, we'll share the sort of implied odds based on bond trader activity as to what is going to happen at the next Fed meeting. And, I gave these guys a lot of crap. I told them they were totally wrong on the last one. Turns out I was wrong. But what I've always told my clients is I'm always wrong. So don't base your decisions on, if I knew what direction the bond market was going to move, wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now. I'd be
My buddy Mike Zuber does, Sean, because like you, is like if you're talking and making predictions, you're going to get some right, some wrong. If he was making a video today, after that, he's got a shirt that says "swing and a miss," and so he'll wear his swing and a miss shirt on days where he misses, and then he's got another shirt that says "nailed it." And so you'd be rocking the swing and a miss today. I'd be rocking the nailed it shirt. Shout out to Mike Zuber.
Frequently, I would be wearing holes in the swing and miss. So coming up in November, so no Fed meeting in October, unfortunately for us. Always my favorite week of the month. Traders implied odds here: 50% chance of a single drop in rate, 50% chance of a double drop, that like we saw last time. Now, if you see here, one of the cool things on this slide is a month ago, well, let's go a week ago, there was a 50% chance of this single drop, but that was sort of in the middle of some people thinking that there would be a single drop in the last one and then a single drop in this upcoming one. So you see here that there's nobody thinks that the Fed is going to not change it. 50% think that it is going to be reduced by 1. And now 50% of people, as opposed to 29% of people, think there might be another double drop. It's just way too early to even know. So I feel like this is like pretty healthy. We've got CPI. We've got 2 CPI reports, or inflation reports, I should say, coming out. We've got, 2 jobs number reports coming out before that happens. And maybe just one, maybe just the October one. And so there's a lot of information left on the table before we have any idea what. And also, it's important to note that the Fed has, like, by November, will have no indication at all of whether or not this interest rate reduction has had any effect on the economy whatsoever. It's far too early to tell, which is what makes their job super difficult and makes it very easy to second guess them, because these things take 3, 6, 12, 18 months. I mean, in the housing market, 12 to 24 months to really show the effect that they've had.
Yeah. You want to hear something interesting too, real quick, is, first it was 6 rate cuts, and then I think it kind of went all the way down to maybe people were predicting 2. Now we're right in the middle where 4 total cuts, 100 basis points, including the one meeting we just passed. So we've got 50. We were expecting probably 50 more between November and December's meetings. But I was listening this morning to my friends at MBS Highway, and you always get these little snippets of different Fed members saying different things. And then you analyze, like, what does that mean? If this Fed member says this about inflation or that, like, how is that going to influence how policy going forward is kind of decided? Are they going to be, more aggressive? Whatever it was, and I kind of had it playing in the background, a couple Fed members were talking about how they're not worried anymore about inflation getting down to 2%. They're afraid that inflation is like too low, that all of the tightening and higher rates and restrictive policy, like, we're yet to see all the effect of that. And, once the lagging, kind of data and all that stuff comes in, inflation might be at, 0 or 0.5%. So
which would be terrible news.
Which would be terrible news, and would be, kind of free reign for the Fed to cut hard and fast, which I don't necessarily agree is the right thing. I think that, like you said, you got to do it slow, and you got to kind of wait and see how it affects the economy. And, there's nothing hard and fast about soft landings. So if they want to land soft, they got to take it easy.
Yeah, I agree. If you look forward into December here, you see a second, third, fourth, And then the biggest bet is on a 5th total rate cut.
Ooh, so we're talking about 125 bippers between the last 3 meetings. So 75 more.
That's right. So one would have to be a double and one would be a single. It's been a lot like this though, where it's like there's this thought that there's going to be 2-1-1 or 1-2-2 or something like that. So should be interesting. Again, way too early to even tell on this. And then going forward into January, you've even got what would be a 6th one is the most likely to occur. Very few people think just 5, and some people think up to a 7th one, and some people think an 8th one. So you wait.
8, yeah, 8 would be like 4 doubles, right? Just like 450.
Yeah, just slamming them in. So
bam, bam.
It'll be really interesting to see the numbers. In my opinion, in Jerome Powell really interestingly said, we're not doing a double because we feel like we're being reactive and this is an emergency. We're doing a double because if we would have had the information that came out like during the week of the last one of the August meeting, if we would have had that information a week earlier, we would have done a single then and a single there. So we're just playing catch up. Like, this isn't an emergency. We just like the timing of the numbers was too late. And so we just consider this 2 singles going back, not a big double that's reactive. I think that's a lot of the reason we didn't see rates go down much, because he was saying we're just playing catch up. We're not overreacting here. So I think to go into what you were saying about how does this affect a Q4 home buyer. If you take a look at median sales prices of homes since 2020, the median sales price right sort of in the middle of COVID was about $320,000 for a house across the entire United States. You've seen that this got all the way up to about 445. So you're seeing an increase of almost about 40% there. And it's been slowly kind of working its way down into Q2 of this year, where it's at about 415, which is insane. Knowing that house prices have been coming down slowly, what do you think this means for somebody trying to intersect rates going down, house pricing probably going up as a result of lower rates? What do you do, Matt? If I come to you, I'm a W-2 salaried person, and buying a $418,000 house is going to put me at about like a 40% debt to income ratio. A little bit spicy, it's well within guidelines, but not something I necessarily want to spend my entire life at a 40% debt to income ratio, considering, right, not just housing, but also my Ford F-150 Lariat payment, and my, my Tesla Model X payment, and my student loans, and my,
that's the problem. That's the problem.
My boat payments.
Yeah, to all those depreciating assets. I think first and foremost, anybody who's a buyer needs to realize, like, you don't time the market. Like, when the time comes that you're financially in a good place and solid sound foundation, like, that's when you purchase a house. And I think that if you kind of disregard what you think home prices are going to do, what mortgage interest rates are going to do, and just look at the snapshot in time, you get yourself pre-approved. If I put 5% down at 400,000, here's what it looks like. If I did 10% down, here's what it looks like. I've got this much in the bank. Here's how much we make. We're currently paying X in rent. If we bought a house at that price, 10% down, we'd have about the same payment, but then we'd only have $11,000 left in savings. If we put down 5%, we're going to have more money in savings, maybe 40 grand in buffer, but our payment's going to go up $275. Can we afford that? These are the questions you should be asking. All of these questions are you specific and not market specific, because if you ask me what's going to go on with the market, your guess is as good as mine. I think mine's maybe a little bit better just because I've seen a thing or two. But what I'll tell people is, anybody who's saying rates are going to come down, home prices are going to explode, and that people have called for like reverse, what they call it, reverse crash, where like houses
crash up,
prices crash up. Like, I don't see that happening. And I also, as much as it would be nice to get homes on a discount, and I would love a 15, 20, 30% discount, like, it's almost impossible for that to happen in most markets, given the dynamic with inventory, demand, being inflated and on an uptick because of mortgage interest rates going down. But what I do think, Sean, is I think a couple things are probably going to cancel themselves out. We were on this trajectory with mortgage rates higher for longer, where stuff was sitting on the market for longer. There wasn't as much buyer activity, so we had like some lows when it came to mortgage applications, and so you were in some markets seeing 5%, 10%, a little bit of price, quote unquote, softening. If rates would have stayed above 7%, that would have continued. And we might have, in some markets, been like, oh my gosh, I can get this home 15% less than I could have got it in the summer of 2022. That kind of felt like the top for a lot of markets. Interest rates started going up, things started getting soft, and it's been a rocky ride for a lot of people since. But with rates coming down and that injecting more on the demand side, I really think it truly cancels out the softness that most markets are seeing, to where what it's going to equate to and what would be the healthiest is a somewhat balanced market where home prices are flat or they go up 2%. For a buyer, you should be excited about it, saying, you know what, I can get a 6.25. I'm no longer in a market where I can offer 485 on the house that's listed at 515. Like I'm going to have to pay either list price or close to it because there's going to be 4 or 5 offers. But you're also looking at a payment where 6.25 at 515 is a cheaper payment than if you got it at 485 and had a 7.5 attached to it. And so I think, my short-term kind of guesstimates is the market's going to be fairly balanced, because the softening that's occurred because rates are higher and people are feeling a little bit squeezed is going to be offset by some newly injected demand because people are excited about mortgage rates coming down.
Yeah, I do think that the increase in demand is going to be like the decrease in rates is going to be slow. It's going to be nonstop, but it's going to be slow. So the increase in demand is going to be slow as well. And you're just going to see, I think, those lines moving together, right? Rates go down, prices go up. It's like you're never going to be able to catch the falling knife because the knife isn't really falling. It's like what you pay will always be representative of current mortgage rates and like the effect that has on demand. So, I mean, if I'm telling somebody, right, like if you can afford the payment, if you're not depleting your cash reserves, and at 6.125, 6.25, you can afford it. Better to lock in that purchase price at that rate and then wait for rates to slowly decline. And I'm not saying 100% chance that they are going to decline enough for you to ever have a refi. But if I go all the way forward to as far as the CME tool allows me to see rate predictions, then by December of next year, most people think that we will have had 10 to 15 rate cuts by then. And
holy guacamole.
So yeah, we've got the most popular is at 275 to 300 bips. So that's 11.
Yeah, 275 is 11, 300 is 12.
Yeah.
Which, for people listening, you're like, wait, you just told us that the Fed funds rate doesn't affect mortgage interest rates. It does. They're correlated in some facet, but it's not like today's Fed rate cut is affecting today's mortgage rates. We're looking into the future and what the Fed is doing for the next quarter or 2 quarters is already baked into mortgage rates. But with the Fed funds rate coming down 300 basis points, with the spread between the 10-year Treasury and 30-year fixed rates being squeezed because there's less volatility, like all these things point to we're probably going to be Q4 of 25 looking at mortgage interest rates in the low 5s.
Yeah, maybe even high, maybe even high 4s. In which case, right now you've locked in your $418,000 house. By that time, we've been seeing home prices increase, despite the chart I just showed you, in most major markets by 6 to 8% per year. So now instead of paying 418, you wait until it's 450,000, and great, now your interest rate is 5.25, but like now you've gone a year without building equity and you have the exact same housing payment.
Yeah, and if you bought now, and this is something too, like I'll get grief for it because I'm just a mortgage broker trying to sell things. All right, fine. Yeah, throw your shade and your tomatoes at me. But I know math, right? And to Sean's point, you buy it today at 418, it's got a 6.25 interest rate tied to it. A year from now, if that same house is selling for 450, but you've already bought it, the cool part for you is you get to refinance that mortgage that's attached to a lower purchase price to a 5.25. So now,
and now you've got like an 87% loan to value ratio. So you owe a lower percentage of the value as your loan amount, and that means maybe your PMI, your monthly mortgage insurance payment, goes down as well. So you benefit yourself in a lot of ways, and you've spent a year building up, not an insane amount of equity, but $5, $6, $7, $8,000 in paid equity, plus the appreciation equity, plus all the little honey-do items that you're gonna pour in and work on every week, and you're gonna repaint the front siding. You're gonna if you're gonna add on a deck, aren't you guys? Just kidding. I never actually do any of that. I got a lot of plans though.
Really, you guys aren't big home remodelers? Because I think that like my wife is like 90% and I'm only 10% of it, but still there's always, even if you move into a house, you're like, oh, this place is turnkey, it's move-in ready. You always want to make it your own, do little projects. My wife's got never ending cool little things where stuff I wouldn't even think about, organization of, I don't know, the pantry. We put doors between these two rooms so I can be at peace in my home office. There's always little stuff going on.
Yeah, we're just trying to keep ours from falling down. Ours is like an 80-year-old house. So, but
that's good to do too. Yeah. Don't let it fall down.
So yeah, I think that like as usual, don't try and time the market. If Matt and I, who look at the market day in, day out, have completely different viewpoints on what's going to happen with as much information. Like we were 3 days before the Fed meeting and we both were like, I don't know, 1 drop, 2 drops. We couldn't even tell something was going to happen 3 days in advance. You can't predict a year from now. You can't predict 2 years from now. And you can only really make the decision based on affordability right now. If buying is similar to renting in terms of monthly payment and you're not going to deplete your cash reserves and you've got a home you've got your eye on, make the decision as if rates will never go down. Yeah. That's the first thing.
And one thing too, like as you were talking about, Sean, I thought about like me giving you advice and you being, Shawnee home buyer at that 400 purchase price in your market. If you can get one less bedroom or something that isn't like completely turnkey for 360, go buy something for 360. If you're worried about that, like people always think that they've got to have the best, like nicest house the first go around. Let your first house be something, well within your means. Buy something that's below your budget because, upgrading the future after you've, paid down some principal balance, after you've gleaned some equity is a lot easier than when you buy too much house and you're trying to go backwards. Like that's a lot harder.
I agree. I think there's kind of been the death of the starter home for some reason. I don't know if it's because of like flippers and investors or just unrealistic expectations. But like I remember visiting some of the houses my parents grew up in when we like visited their hometowns and stuff like that. Or not that they grew up in, but like the first houses they bought. And it's literally just like a block of concrete. And they were like, man, such great memories in this house. And you're like, it's in Florida. Like there's no air conditioner. The windows are literally just like slats that you can like push up and down. And like that was the air conditioning. And it was like 700 square feet. And, it's like, sometimes you just got to get a starter home first.
Right.
And let the equity build from there. I know you've got a 9 o'clock. You have to get to there, Mr. Gougé. This is fantastic. I can't wait till next week. We've got some fun numbers coming out that we will review on next week's edition of the Monday Market Update. I hope you have a great day.
Sounds good. You too, buddy. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, everyone.